What's up, y'all? It's Quinn Steve, and I'm back here with another YouTube video, and we're here to break down what has finally come, the 2025 NFL playoffs. We're gonna do it round by round. I'm not gonna try to predict everything in one round, especially with the way these playoffs are this year, with all these evenly matched teams and this and that. There's no clear favorite to me in either conference. Spoiler alert. So I think we're just gonna go round by round and see how that goes. But anyway, definitely a new look in the playoffs this year. There's always a stat that ESPN has that fascinates me, and that's, I believe, ever since 1990, about half of the teams that make the playoffs the previous year don't make it the next year. And that's pretty much what we got here this year. Again, 4 new teams in the NFC, and then 2 over in the AFC, obviously Jacksonville, New England, which are probably the 2 biggest surprises of them all, because they were terrible last year. Both teams, I think one was 4-13, the other was 3-14. They may both have been 4-13. So tremendous turnarounds by those 2 franchises. And then NFC, you got Seattle, who's the #1 overall seed, Chicago, who's the 2 seed. They won the division. San Francisco, and then Carolina went in the South. So that rings true again this year. So we're gonna see how things shake out. Definitely when I think of the AFC in particular, you look at who's not in the playoffs so much as it is who is in the playoffs. When you look at probably 3 of the best 4 quarterbacks in the NFL today, in Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, all 3 are out of the playoffs. It's just Josh Allen. And the Bills have had their struggles, to be honest with you. They're the 6th seed, they've won 11 games, but they've had their struggles in areas other than Josh Allen, and they've kind of had to lean and rely on him to be able to kind of carry them through some of these regular season games. Is that going to be enough to get them to the Super Bowl? I don't know. We'll see. But personally, I wouldn't bank on it. And maybe what's the beautiful thing about these playoffs is that all these teams are improving. You look at Denver, they made the playoffs last year, but they kind of backdoored in as a 7th seed. Now they're the #1 overall seed. Obviously, I mentioned New England, Jacksonville. They had these incredible turnarounds, but they're very young teams with newer head coaches. And then, Pittsburgh, their older team. Obviously, we got Aaron Rodgers and TJ Watt. They have veterans, but they still don't really have a lot of guys who went to the Super Bowl other than their coach and their quarterback. And those were long times ago. So, how much experience you have there. And then the 3 wildcard teams, the Texans are a young team. They have enough of an offense. They don't have that much of an offense, but really they're a defensive-minded team, led by the coach and all those great players they have over on defense with the Texans. And then, the Bills, obviously I mentioned they had their struggles. The Chargers, they have a lot of talent, but they've had their injuries as well, even though they have a really good quarterback as well. So each one of these teams are flawed, and that makes it evenly matched, which makes the matchups fun, in my opinion. Really, to me, I would have to say the NFC has the better batch of teams. We look at Seattle or Chicago, but they're kind of similar to the AFC teams, where you have teams that are mostly younger and unproven, but then you have a couple of veteran teams. They have a few more veteran teams than the AFC would have that have been there before, I would say. You look at the Eagles, and I would say, the Rams to some degree, with the Matt Stafford and the Sean McVay, the head coach, but they kind of have some younger guys as well that haven't really been that far. But obviously, we saw what they did last year. They almost went to Philadelphia in the blizzard and beat the Eagles. They gave them their stiffest test last year in the postseason. So, you got that they're riding off of. Carolina, obviously, very young team. San Francisco, they've been there before as well. They've had some guys that were there when they made their Super Bowl pushes a few years back. But their personnel kind of looks a little bit different too. I don't think they had the defense that they had back then. And then Green Bay, they're kind of younger team, but they're experienced as far as going into the playoffs, but they're kind of limping in there. And then without Micah, that's a big part of the defense that's missing. That we'll see how they replace it, but I don't know how. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get to the predictions now that I've set things up. With the wild card round, we will go in the order that the games are played in. So that means we got 2 games today on Saturday, 3 games on Sunday, and then the Monday Night Football game as well. So let's go ahead and start with Saturday. That means we're starting with the first game, that being the Los Angeles Rams visiting the Carolina Panthers. So that Rams-Panthers game is going to be the early game on Fox. And you got a team in the Rams, 12-5. The 5th seed in the NFC, which is probably one of the more favorable seeds to have. And, you got a guy like a Matt Stafford, who I think is the league MVP this year. You got Puka Nacua having a great year, Kyron Williams having a great year, and everything like this. But keep in mind, Carolina, late November, beat the Rams 31-28 in Carolina. So this will be a rematch of that. So Carolina's going to this with some confidence, I would say. Bryce Young's had a pretty good year, all things considered. Most people thought he was a bust and this and that. He's had his moments where he's up and down, but he's had a good year. Ted McMillan on the outside, that's probably the offensive rookie of the year to me in the NFL, or at least the NFC. And then, Rico Dowell had a nice year running the ball. He's had over 1,000 yards rushing. And from my understanding, the Rams on defense do struggle with bigger receivers, which Carolina has a couple of those. So that's one thing to look for. And also in that game, Matt Stafford turned the ball over three times. So obviously that's something that can't happen for the Rams if they want to, fulfill their dreams of going to the Super Bowl, which they're completely capable of. That being said, the spread in this game, I think it's like -10 or something like that, which is crazy. Maybe a little disrespectful to the Panthers, but when you look at, how they played the last couple of months, I'm not fond of teams that back their way into the playoffs. This is one thing about me, you gotta know, I don't like teams that back their way into the playoffs. Momentum is a real thing, and I think that's something that can haunt the Panthers and stuff. And so obviously, on top of that, it's hard to beat a team twice. So with that being said, I am going with the Rams in this game. They should win pretty comfortably, I would say. And then the next game that will be happening tonight will be the Green Bay Packers and the Chicago Bears, two teams that need absolutely no introduction to one another. Obviously, they're in that NFC North. Of course, so they play twice a year. I know the Bears won the last meeting there, and then this rubber match, I would say the third matchup, it's going to be in Chicago. So obviously, the weather is not going to be ideal, but both teams, where they play, they're obviously used to that. The Packers, I like their offensive pieces. And obviously, you have the quarterback, Jordan Love, Josh Jacobs in the backfield, and all those receivers that they have in Green Bay that they just, they pick a different one to throw to. But my concern is that defense. They got so many guys that are banged up. And now it's not just Michael Parsons, it's deeper than that. They got guys in the secondary, the linebacker core, and in the defensive front that are going to be missing in this game. So, you couple that with a Chicago team playing at home. Obviously, they'll be rejuvenated by that, and then it's going to be an ugly weather game, so it's likely going to be a ground and pound type of game where the Bears are just going to run the ball and then make timely passes from that point. So if both teams are right, to be honest, I would take Green Bay, but it's just not how things work in this world, is it? Right? So I'm going with the Chicago Bears in this game. All right, so that rolls us into our 3 games tomorrow, starting with the early game, that being the Buffalo Bills at the Jacksonville Jaguars. And if you told me that a 12-5, or 13-14 rather, would have a home game, be the 3 seed in their conference, and be underdogs before the season, I would say you're crazy. But that's exactly what we have here with the Jaguars. The Bills are actually the favorites. Why is that the case? I'm not sure, because frankly, the Jaguars are the better team. They've proven that, but the Bills have the best player, so that's probably the best justification. And by all intents and purposes, if you've been reading or listening to or watching Sports Talk this week, it's largely revolved around Josh Allen and the fact that because the boogeyman ain't there anymore, Patrick Mahomes, the Bills have got to get it done this year. No excuses. There's no clear favorites in the AFC. So while it's going to be hard, it should be doable for Josh Allen to pull the Bills through and to the Super Bowl. Now, of course, would anything shock me? No, but this is a prediction video, and as such, gotta make a prediction. And I predict that he's not gonna be able to do it. I think the Jaguars are gonna pull this one off. It's gonna be a close game. They'll share some points and this and that. They'll trade that, but I think the Jaguars will have the last laugh, and I think they move on to the divisional round. Now, this next game, the middle game tomorrow, is going to be, to me, the toughest game to pick, that being the San Francisco 49ers, going over to Philadelphia to play the defending champions, the Philadelphia Eagles. Both teams have kind of had their doldrums, so to speak, even though they have good records. It kind of feels like at times that they've kind of underachieved for different reasons or another. I'm going to go with Philly in this game just because it's at Philly. They got that ground game. Obviously, it's going to be I don't know how the weather's going to be in Philadelphia, but I imagine Philadelphia in January, the weather's not going to be great. So there's that. And, I feel a certain kind of way about these warm weather teams going to, colder environments to go and play. I'm pretty sure San Francisco, obviously they're going to be motivated anyway. It's the playoffs, but the Super Bowl, as we all know, is going to be at their home stadium. So they're going to be motivated to want to be the second team that's going to play the Super Bowl in their home stadium. So there's that. Obviously, you got Christian McCaffrey. Brock Purdy, before the last game against Seattle, was playing out of his mind, kind of crashed back down to earth against the Seahawks. So maybe there's a game plan that the Eagles can exploit. And with that defensive line, they absolutely can do that. So, and then I don't know if they have quite the weapons on the outside San Francisco does to be able to counter what Philly's going to do, controlling the clock and running the ball with Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley. So with that, I'm going to go with the Eagles to advance to the divisional round. And then the last game on Sunday Night Football on NBC, will be the 7th seed out of the AFC, the Los Angeles Chargers, going all the way over east to the Northeast to play the New England Patriots, the 2 seed, one of the surprises in the NFL this year. Drake May, MVP candidate. He's been playing great. And just a young team that's been getting better and better each and every single week, it seems like. Going up against a Chargers team that has a lot of talent, but they have a lot of injuries as well, especially on the offensive line. So that's going to really leave Justin Herbert, they're kind of puts him in a position where he's going to have to make some plays, for sure. He's capable of doing that, though. And they have a good running game with Amari Hampton and, some other pieces on the outside at receiver. So the Chargers are capable. I think if they can get past this one, they'd be a pretty trendy pick to probably upset the Broncos, because since they're the lowest seed, they would have to go play Denver, a division rival, and this and that. So I'm leaning towards the Chargers pull this one off, but I'm not sure, because honestly, right now, with the injuries, I would say the Patriots are the better team, but they're so inexperienced. So I will go with the Chargers in a field goal game, just kind of have that one pick to be an upset, because something's going to happen. It's Wildcard weekend, and that's going to be my pick. I'm going to go with the Chargers on this one. And finally, to wrap up Wildcard weekend will be the Monday Night Football game, that being the 5 seed, the Houston Texans, going to play the AFC North champions, the 4 seed, the Pittsburgh Steelers. This is going to be more of a youth versus experience sort of game. Obviously, you got Mike Tomlin and Aaron Rodgers. Just with those two, it's just so much experience that they can pass on to the rest of their team. They have other guys on that team, the Steelers, who are experienced as well. You got this Houston team, they're on a heater, playing great defense all year, the best defense in the NFL, if I'm not mistaken, or at least the best in the AFC. If they're not one, they're 2. So great defense down there in Houston. And the guy is C.J. Stroud, who can make plays with his arm. He doesn't really choose to run, but he can make plays mostly with his arm. And they have a good enough running game to be able to complement. So they don't score a lot of points, but they are capable. And they have weapons on the outside, obviously with Nico Collins and those guys. So it's going to be a stiff test, a young team going up to a Pittsburgh environment that's going to be raucous. It's going to be hostile with that Steelers, the Steelers crowd, that great fan base they have up there in Pittsburgh with the terrible talent and all that. But I do think Houston is the better team. I think they find a way to pull it out. It's going to be late. They're going to pull it out late, and I think it's going to be a closer game. But I think they win about 3 and 6 points. It's going to be a lower scoring defensive game. Again, another warm weather team going up to the cold weather. But I think this time Houston gets a dub. So there it is, guys. Those are my picks. That's what I'm rolling with this weekend. Again, to recap, in the NFC, I got the Rams winning, I have the Eagles winning, and I have the Bears winning. And then over in the AFC, I'm going with the Jaguars, I'm going with the Texans, and I'm going with the Chargers with a slight upset over New England. Let me know what y'all think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe as always. Again, I appreciate y'all so much for being with me. Y'all could be anywhere else in the world, but you're here with me, and I appreciate that. Until next time, it's Cool and Steve, signing out.